We're just starting this live stream with Dylan. Today we are going to talk about data ecosystem, how to think holistically about data stacks, strategy, all of these things. Dylan is a massive expert in this area, and I'm pretty sure that would be extremely beneficial chat for everybody joining this call or watching the recording, listening, all of this. Again, this is a live stream right now, but you can watch the recording. Obviously, if you're watching the recording, joining live is the best way to join the discussion. You can ask questions live. We are more than happy to take this. So yeah, Dylan, again, thank you for joining. For those of the audience who don't know you, maybe can you share a bit more about your background? How did you hop into data? What do you do now? All of this.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, my name's Dylan Anderson. Some of you might know me from LinkedIn or Substack. I've been in data for past 5 years or 6 years or so. But I started out as a business management consultant. So I really approach data from the business perspective and the strategic perspective. And my area of expertise is data strategy. So how to think about data holistically and strategically. And that kind of led into it leads into a lot of my consulting work. So I do a lot of consulting work with clients and now actually moved from London, UK back to Toronto. And I'm starting to do some more freelance and consulting work. So that's a new venture. But aside from that, the consulting work I do is very strategically focused. How do you think about different data domains from a strategic lens? How do you structure what you want to do as an organization in a executional way and thinking about what the business model is or what the actual business strategy is, and make sure it's built in the right way and tangibly too. Like I'm not a pure strategy guy. I code in R. I know how to do that type of stuff. So making sure it works from a technical perspective as well as a strategic perspective is always something that is hard to do. But yeah, anyway, and then as I mentioned, LinkedIn, Substack, and I think we'll probably talk about it a bit later. But I write on the data ecosystem, which is me trying to bring together all the different data domains in the data industry because there's so much we think about, but a lot of the expertise is contained to one domain, maybe it's secondary one, and not thinking about how they all connect together and what that looks like. And that's, I think, becoming even more relevant from a holistic perspective as AI comes in, and because AI treats everything and deals with everything at once. So how do we kind of think about that in a bit more of a systems and holistic way?
Yeah, for sure. I actually love that. That's how you and I started connecting, right? Over LinkedIn first, then Substack. We've met in person, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we met in London. We went to the F1 arcade for
Oh
an
yeah,
event, and it was fun.
yeah. It was quite a lot of fun, actually. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. Okay, you actually mentioned, again, LinkedIn newsletter. By the way, folks, if you for some reason don't follow Dylan on LinkedIn and are not subscribed to the data ecosystem newsletter, certainly do that. We'll share the links, but this is an amazing resource. Specifically the newsletter, I enjoy that a lot. So okay, Dylan, uh, can how did you come up with this newsletter, with the data ecosystem newsletter? Uh, what what made you write it?
Yeah, this is so when I started data strategy consulting and did a lot of that, I would run into the same kind of issue. Like data strategy, I think is probably one of the most wide-reaching data domains there is. Like you have to think about the different parts of data to make sure that the strategy would actually work for it.
Yeah.
But despite that, like a lot of data strategy advice and consulting work, and even when you see an internal company's data strategy, it's still quite high level and contained. It's very much use cases based, or what's the vision, or what's the operational executional plan, and it doesn't really get into like the tech architecture or the underlying data governance and all these other components that you actually have to think about to make it a reality. Um, and and for me, what I was seeing in a lot of businesses is like there's no one person who knows everything about data.
Yeah.
And that you'd think it'd be the head of data or the CDO, but like they have so much on their plate, and most of their time is spent. I mean, you know that most of their time is spent like dealing with executives and dealing with business leaders. Uh, so my thing was like, I think one of the biggest things missing is that holistic view of how things work together and how things connect together, and how do we make sure that people understand that. And so that led me to like, oh, let's write about that because no one has written about that. There's no like overview of all of data book out there. Because it'd just be so massive. There's a lot of great individual books like on data engineering or governance or machine learning, but like how does it all tie together? Because you can't have machine learning without good data engineering, and then data engineering should have good governance principles embedded in that. But like these little tangents aren't clear in a lot of teams or just in the data industry in general. So I was like, all right, let's write about every subject in the data ecosystem. And then yeah, that snowballed. And I started that I think almost 2 years ago. Took a 6 month break, but back at it, and I've got like 40 different subjects to go until I'm like kind of finished the data ecosystem. So we'll see. We'll keep chipping away at it week by week.
I don't think you can really finish that. Especially nowadays, it feels like it grows all the time. It's mad. Madness.
Oh, I like that's the thing. I'm looking back at my articles like from a year and a half ago. I'm like, oh crap. Like the fundamentals are still mostly right, but the idea of AI and where that is like completely. I need to add that in. So I need to do re-edits of my old articles if I ever want to. So it will be an ongoing thing.
Yeah, exactly. I remember even like we had this call with you maybe last year, maybe 2024, when you asked me what's the next big thing for my team, and I told you,
Yeah.
I don't know, but it feels like AI would be something massive. So yeah, it really is, and I can see that it changes everything. But yeah,
Yeah.
to me, your newsletter was a massive thing. That again, just to confirm that you can read things, you can know, in theory things, but unless you have this holistic view, it's very hard to set any data strategy for your company, really.
Yeah, and it goes beyond that now too, because like that's the thing. I'm like, I still want to finish the data ecosystem, but now my mind is constantly jumping to like, okay, like how does AI change the data ecosystem? How does it change the business ecosystem? So actually, right now, my last article that I released on Sunday was about explaining business models, and I've got two more. One about business models and their relevance for data domains, which I finished, and then the one I'm writing right now, which is how does your business model adapt and evolve in the world of AI? Because what we're seeing is like all these companies just bolting on AI tools or AI projects onto their existing business model. And like, yeah, it's delivering a little bit of ROI, but they're not actually redefining how they do things with AI. And that's going to be a problem 3 to 5 years after. Like we saw the disruption for companies that were like data first,
Yeah.
and now we're gonna see the disruption from AI first companies. Like we're starting to see that, but like that will be more and more evident. So like, and how do you change? How do you change the direction of a Titanic Goliath organization to adopt AI in that way? And that's I think a problem no one's really solved for yet. So like, yeah, there's constantly new things that are just like running through my brain. So it's fun.
It's very fun, but yeah, I like that idea that you mentioned. Essentially, your strategy can't be just we're doing AI. It needs to be more. You need some definition in a sense. So I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like data ecosystem is not just tooling from your explanation. It's way more. Can you define it better in a sense with your words?
Yeah, so I love how it used to be when people reference the data ecosystem, if you went on all the big companies' websites, they reference the data ecosystem. In the past, it used to be just the tooling and the tech stack, to your point. Like it was more of a technology ecosystem or a
Yeah.
land. I call that a landscape because it's like a standalone in time. It might change once in a while, but it's not living and breathing. Whereas I see the data ecosystem as actually an ecosystem. Think about the relationships between things. Like if you compare it to a real life ecosystem, say like a pond, right? Everything is part of that. Not like it's not just the animals and the trees and the plants and stuff. It's like the sun, the soil. the little micro bacteria in the pond, whatever. And from a data perspective, we have to think about those things that aren't as obvious, right? So thinking about like what the business model is, thinking about what the business strategy is, thinking about stakeholder communications or tech debt or like your data ops. All these things like need to fit together because they're all related to one another. And we do this kind of intrinsically when we work in our businesses. We don't really think about how they relate. You just like, oh, I need to talk to this stakeholder, and that stakeholder might be a a data governance expert, right? But if you think of it more proactively, you're gonna be better at your job. You're gonna be um, more. You're gonna be able to anticipate what's happening and do things in a with a better output. And that's kind of what this is about is mapping those relationships, why things matter, and just explaining it in a simple kind of, hey, this is why you should pay attention to it and how you think about it kind of way. And then one other thing I just love is I like creating frameworks and how things map out to each other and what that looks like because I think that just helps you visualize. Oh yeah, we need to think about this while we're thinking about this. Um, so yeah, it and like any ecosystem, it's always evolving, right? You're always going to be looking at what's next for it and how the interrelationships evolve together and grow together. Um, and I think, yeah, we've talked to it before, me and you, and even you kind of explained in your business how things like map together quite a bit, right? And the data modeling to the data engineering that you've built, and that link to the architecture, and then it kind of linked to the governance and the forward thinking analytical models and everything. So
I like that. I like that a lot, especially this part where you say, it's not just tools, it's also, if I need to summarize it, let's say that it's also people, it's processes, it's all these relationships. And actually, that is one of the things I really enjoy in your newsletter, where you visualize all of this, 'cause you draw this, you have all these diagrams, because it's one thing to think about it, to imagine, but seeing it is, it's much more valuable. I like that a lot.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's anything, and I think especially in today's world, like it's crazy um, what AI can do in terms of things, but like you need to. So, like it can code, it can do all these things, but if you can think, if you as an individual in your role can think more holistically about other people's needs or what they do and their expertise, you can get ahead of the game and really be more desirable because you're thinking beyond that. I think a great example, and like, I mean, you can probably vouch for this, Jordan, is like engineering. The difference between a junior engineer and a senior engineer is the senior engineer thinks about all the things around it. The junior engineer thinks about pipelines and building pipelines, right? And they build to build, and it's like technically good. But the senior engineer is like, okay, why are we even building this pipeline? And how do we bring these things together? And they are thinking, oh, we need to actually model the data better. They're thinking more from a high level architecture, data science, business stakeholder, all these types of things. And that's the differentiator. And that's kind of what gets you promoted, especially in today's world where like those individual one off tasks and low value tasks can be done by AI much more efficiently. So you need to think about what those second and third order things are of that higher value of how you deliver that. And I think taking a step back and thinking more strategically allows you to do that.
Oh, okay. Nice. I like that. So, uh, let's say, there are plenty of engineers here who actually are interested in that. They're, very focused into, as I said, infrastructure, or maybe writing pipelines, all that. Is the promotion the only thing they need to care about? Is that the only reason they need to care about the holistic data ecosystem? Is there more? What was the benefit for all of these people?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit is it makes you a better engineer. I mean, when I talk to you, like I did a series a while back talking to like data leaders, and I talked to you and a few other heads of engineering, and there the consistent theme in that was thinking from a business perspective of why the business needs this data in this certain way helps them be smarter about how they do work and more efficient. One thing I've really learned over my career is to work smarter and not harder because um, you have like for me, I have times a day where I'm like, I know I'm absolutely efficient. I have times a day where I'm useless. And I know like I'm gonna bang out these 5 things in this time of day where I'm super efficient. And it's the same thing when you bring it to your work life as potentially an engineer, right? Like what is that 80-20 mix? Like what is the data that the business really cares about? And how do you structure it in a way that gets to the end goal? If you think that before you just start building and coding, you're going to be more effective and you're going to be seen as a more valuable stakeholder rather than someone who just builds pipelines for the sake of building pipelines. And that makes you a better engineer and by default gets you promoted. Um, the other thing too is it gives you a way you're more aligned with other stakeholders in the organization, be it business stakeholders, data scientists, data analysts. And because I think that's another big thing that people need to do in their careers is step out of the data bubble. And if you step out of the data bubble and you're more kind of you're learning how to interact with other stakeholders, you don't have to talk to them all the time, but when needed, people will regard you and what you do as more effective. And they'll be like, oh, you're an absolutely great engineer because you talk to me at the right times and you get what I'm taught, I want to accomplish. And you're delivering against your stakeholder needs.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I love that. The thing here is that I really appreciate is, yeah, okay, promotion is one thing, but when you get more aligned with these stakeholders, you get more trusted. And even if your goal is not promotion, essentially y- people start listening more to you, to your ideas, and you get what you want. And I myself, but also people I work with, got a lot of this feedback where if you talk to the business stakeholders in their language, in a sense, they appreciate that and they say, "Oh, you know what? You're not like most engineers who only think about their problem, from technical point of view." And yeah, I like that
Y-
a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing I'd add to it is like as you go on in your career, like, you can't say if you ever want to go freelance or if you ever want to move to a new job, right? It becomes a lot easier to market yourself when you can think from more than I can just code or build these pipelines and do these things. It means a lot more when saying like, oh, I actually understand and have worked with these different stakeholder groups and really understand their perspective. Um, because I mean, as things go forward, right, a lot more responsibilities will go onto the plate of one person, one role. That's where things are headed. So learning the perspectives of how you take on those responsibilities and put them together is super important.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, just a quick reminder. Sorry, do you want to say something?
Oh no, actually, the one other thing I was gonna say that it just came to my mind was the other big thing that I also see in data a lot is we're so focused on doing because most data teams are like firefighting, reactive, ticket based, right? And that really does make it hard to think holistically and take a step back. Like I even get caught in that when I'm like, I need to do X, Y, Z. I forget to kind of think and take a step back. So it's just worth reminding yourself when you're in that mode, like, okay, you know what? Take a step back, take 15 minutes and be like, hey, does this really matter? What actually really matters? And kind of approach it from that angle because it's you can get lost in it so easily in data.
Yeah, yeah. I had a coaching call with somebody exactly on the same idea. They were in this ticket taker mode. It's very common actually. I'm sure a lot of those people watching and listening to us are exactly in the same thing. So that's very, very valuable. Uh yeah, and while on that, a quick reminder, the Dion and I are talking about data ecosystem, how to think holistically, essentially how this matters for all of us as data practitioners and people who want to think about strategy. Uh, Folks, as always, if you have any questions or comments, we'd love you to participate in the chat. We'll take this live. And yeah, as always, just pressing the like button actually helps us a lot. Uh yeah, that's the way. Dylan, my question about for you is again, with your consulting experience, if you have to guess, although it might not really a guess, but and from your experience, what percentage of the companies you've worked with, or essentially the data, have this coherent data technology, and when is that more like things accumulated over time? It's pure chaos, really.
I'd say largely pure chaos. I've worked a lot of the companies I've worked with are billion-dollar organizations. Like they're huge, they're big, and they're very far behind. And a lot of it is just piecemeal buildup of things. Like they're still focused on putting together a data warehouse where all their data is in one place, and they're very focused on like the single source of truth and stuff like that. And they have teams of people trying to drive towards that. And of course, like that's an aspirational goal. A lot of companies don't have that. But it really just goes to show the things you see on LinkedIn, the things you see in the news, isn't the reality for 95% of companies out there,
Oh,
right? They're not blasting ahead of things and doing things in a unique way. They might be in one or two domains, but then they're further behind in the other five domains, right? And what I'd say is the biggest the biggest thing is they don't necessarily know how to link that kind of business strategy to the data and how data should properly enable the organization. And what you see is the best performing people are the ones in the organization are the ones who think about that in that kind of way. And they are the superstars in every client I go into. Like they're like, oh yeah, we need to think more holistically. We need to think about this and build this in that kind of way. And it's that's going to be, I think, a trend for years to come. I think a lot of what's happening right now in the AI world is going to overhaul some of this, but I think big enterprises are still going to be static in a lot of ways because
yeah.
of security and governance and compliance perspectives that they don't want to like unleash their data and their PII to AI. So I think there's going to be a lot of legacy chaos still maintained for the next quite a while. But it presents the opportunity for people to kind of like figure out how to push that along in a unique and new way.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I, I I enjoyed that part where you say, you have companies that actually have a few of these great domains, but still, in a sense, like fail with their data ecosystem. Is that just communication? Is there something more? What's the reason actually?
The reason, in my perspective, is the interconnected nature of a lot of these elements. Like I think when I chat with you and others, the companies that were far ahead, like had a great data model to back up their engineering and their analytics work, right? Where some of these companies have signed up to great BI tools and like I've heard really good things about Omni and like Sigma and stuff like that. But like it's based off of poor data in the background. So like they're not actually delivering the benefit that they should be. Um, so like they have some bits figured out, but then other bits aren't, and therefore they're not getting the full impact of it. Right. And I think that's again where a proper data strategy or holistic thinking makes a big difference. But you don't see it in a lot of these organizations because data is kind of tackled in a piecemeal way and it's been bolted on um, as well. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a complicated problem, right? It's early, but yeah, I also anticipate started working on a project like this where it's a mess. It's an actual mess. So yeah, I can see that as well.
Yeah, and I guess to build on that too, I think a lot of data approaches have been started from the business processes and the business model, right?
Yeah.
They've started from like, okay, what and so there's a bit of a mismatch of what needs to be done where and why. And I think that needs to be refactored in a lot of organizations. They need to rethink about, okay, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Because they've just been doing things for ages and then kind of get caught up in uh, that that area. And it's hard. It's really hard to kind of continue to instill new thinking and innovation into a business that's just trying to keep chugging along.
Do you mean that data strategists, data practitioners should actually influence the business process?
If you can, that's great. I mean, I think, and it starts with communications. It starts with those stakeholder management, right? You need to build up that trust with the people in the business realm, and realistically, that's most evident for data leaders, because they have the most influence to do that. But once you have that trust, you can kind of point them towards better ways. Like the business, like marketing people, finance people, salespeople, they're not blind. They see all the things that are happening with data and AI. They're like, we want some of that stuff, but they don't really know how to get there. So that's why they're buying like Salesforce AI and agentic AI there, or like other AI bolt on tools, and then not really figuring out, slash, it doesn't connect to the data within the organization. And then it doesn't actually deliver the full value. So there needs to be more of a collective effort between business stakeholders and data practitioners slash leaders to really establish, okay, we want this. Like, what do you want to actually do? What's the outcome that you want? And then work together to actually create that outcome as the expertise, as the data experts in the room. And I don't think there's enough of a priority to do that because the data team's just doing what they've mostly always done. So there is that opportunity. It's just kind of hard.
Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into that. If what's the difference? Let's say you have a data practitioner, regular data practitioner is somebody specializing more into this ecosystem slash strategy thing. What's the difference between their explanations in data problems? How one person approaches this communication, how the other person does it?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is mostly like a lack of engagement and a lack of buy-in. So if I were to take that position, if I was a data analyst at a large company and I was supposed to be working with the marketing team on this, I think it's about kind of, rather than constantly just building and producing reports, it's working with them to be like, hey, what do you want now? What do you want in the future? Like, what is that ideal goal? And then you're the data expert. So you shouldn't be asking them like, what kind of data tool do you want? You should be asking them like, what kind of business outcome do you want? And then, when they kind of say the business outcome, you say like, okay, for that, I kind of recommend this. And then you go back and forth, kind of ironing that out and making sure that you have agreement with that stakeholder of what you want to build and what you want to create. Now with AI, you can probably create a prototype in like 2 seconds to help
Yeah.
you kind of actually like visualize that and show that. And then go off and build it while maintaining that communication. And that way you are taking their area of expertise of the business outcome and the business result, and your area of expertise of how to build it and how to deliver that, and bringing it together to create something useful for both of you. Um, and yeah, that's how I would approach it. Um, because if you don't do it that way, you're going to build something that they're never going to use, and we see that a lot.
So it's not enough to just ask business stakeholders to become data literate, but also data people need to become business literate.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest problems is we're so focused on data literacy that we're not talking about business literacy. And most data people don't learn business literacy. I was lucky; I came from a business background, so I understand it. Um, and it's second nature to me, where it's not second nature to everybody. So it really is kind of about learning the business model, about learning what are the key KPIs, all that kind of stuff, and in embedding that into how you work and the way you work. Because otherwise, you're just going to be siloed and you're not going to speak the same language.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that recently, about the fact that I've seen, probably you too, and everybody, a lot of people are coming into data from different domains, but you can very rarely see people coming from like going from data into different domains because
Yeah.
it's just very hard, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting evolution. So I'd say like 5 years ago, even, um, I think a lot of people coming into data came into it from other domains because like becoming a data person wasn't as like you didn't start your career as a data person. People just kind of migrated to that from like finance or operations or whatever. And then now more than ever, you get a lot of people who just started their career as data persons. They've not learned the other areas of the business. They've not learned, or they've not come from like tech, like a software engineer or something like that. So they've not learned that kind of software engineering best practice. Um, so it's especially relevant for people who are very new to their career and new to data in that realm.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, you mentioned AI building things, solutions. So that's the truth. Everybody's rushing into it, including the company I work for. Everybody. Uh, I suppose looking to this data ecosystem problem, what are the foundations that companies are skipping? What do you need to do?
There's a lot. And this is something I'm still really thinking about and trying to nail down and figure out what it is. Like one part of my kind of freelance consulting agenda is going to be to kind of do these AI systems design workshops with companies of like how do you actually think from an AI led perspective on what you're doing from a business operations perspective. Because I think there's different kind of layers of it. I mean, one layer, which I think most people are focused on, is that technical layer. Like, what are the models that are doing things? Like, how do we think about that? What do we attack, touch on? All that type of stuff. The second kind of layer is that business and the strategic thinking perspective of like, where does an organizational structure, like, where does AI actually fit in the way we operate, in the way we do things as an organization? Like, can AI replace our, for example, brand manager on our CPG product, on our, like, say, on our soap product? Probably not, but like, what can it do for that brand manager to make their life a lot easier? And what are those operational processes we think about? And like companies, AI companies are just throwing out tons of ideas around that, but it's not really structured. Companies need to approach it first with what's easiest to replace with AI and then kind of get to the point of, okay, this is how we replace it with that technical lens and technical layer. So those are two layers. And then the third layer is that kind of trust, culture, and compliance layer. So thinking about how do we get people within the organization and outside the organization to trust how we work with AI and to use it in an effective way that is compliant with our PII, with just compliant with our data, is making sure that people aren't like second guessing the numbers or second guessing this. Um, and that kind of those three things kind of should work holistically and be thought of interchangeably to get to that next level. Because if it's not, it's a bolt on. And what we're seeing right now is that technical layer is the main thing that's being thought of, and that's being bolted on, and ignoring the people part and the kind of process part. Um, so I kind of deviated from the question that you asked, but from a data ecosystem perspective, it takes that holistic idea and brings it to an AI perspective. And I think it will draw from certain domains in the data ecosystem more than others. So the big ones that I think companies really need to concentrate on, and individuals too, if they want to kind of propel, and what we'll see is like data modeling and architecture. Like, how do we actually stand up an AI first architecture? It will look different than a data architecture. And we're seeing that already. We're seeing uh, that switch. The second one is kind of governance. So, how do we actually govern the AI models and the thinking? And what does that look like? Again, data governance was a bad word for the longest time. Now it's like in vogue because everyone's realizing, oh shit, our data is not properly governed and it's poor quality. Um, John Warrenfeld joined at the perfect time. Um, he talks a lot about data governance. Um, but that needs to be taken to the next level with AI, and that's beyond just the data. You still have to govern that. Like, what are the AI models pulling from, and how are they running, and how do we trust them and govern them in the right way, rather than just letting them loose and live on and not know what's happening. So data modeling and data governance or data and AI governance are the two biggest things I think pulling from the data ecosystem that need to be thought of. And of course, there's everything else as well. Like obviously data engineering will still be important. Data and AI strategy, what are you doing and how do you replicate this? Organizational operating models, which it's all very important and now needs to be thought of in a different lens.
Awesome. Oh, okay. So it's more of a layering thing. It's not just one thing that you take at once, but more like solving solutions into layers. That's both for, I guess, AI, but also how you think about data ecosystem overall.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think where the thinking is gonna be evolving to, right? And I think it's where like we need to rethink what business actually means in the next 5 to 10 years because it's not the same as it was 5 to 10 years ago. Data was a stepstone above what business used to be. It's accelerated, it's enabled like over the past 10 years, data science and data analytics has accelerated and enabled business to do things that it couldn't have done 20 years ago. But that was all within the realm of like cognitive uh it was within our own cognitive like realm of actual it was easier to understand as an individual. What we're going to next is completely next level. And we have to rethink about how business actually operates in an AI world. And that will have implications across everything that we do.
Yeah. Wow, that's a massive problem. I can certainly see how most companies, most people are not prepared to take that. I know, you're not ready, so to speak. You do not want to talk about your consulting plans, but I can see why people need somebody like, who can see this and solve these kind of problems. So,
Yeah,
ma-
I mean that's the goal.
awesome. That's big. I like that a lot. That's amazing. Uh, hmm. Okay, so what does this I would say again, holistic thinking, although it's obviously layered one as well, but how that looks into everybody's day-to-day life in, as data professionals. Would yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think as data professionals, it just goes back into like take a relook at your job and what you do on a daily basis and think, okay, if I were to do one or focus on one or two other domains, what are they? What else should I learn? And how will that kind of differentiate me from the other people who do the same job? And then how can I think about it more strategically? I think it's about just being more holistic and being more strategic. The technical is getting taken over by AI and automation.
code basically.
Exactly. I don't think anyone's writing individual code now and by themselves as much. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy. So like you really do have to be strategic about how things are built. Um, think about the foundations that you learned when you grew up in your technical basis. Still use that, and then think about how things relate to each other because AI is still not very good at that. It's very generic in how it thinks about those things. And I don't think that will be fixed that soon. Like it will think about these things, they'll refer to them, but like you have the context that matters, you have the domain expertise, and you can be like, okay, this is how things relate to one another, and this is how I can kind of think beyond what's right in front of me.
nice. By the way, folks, this is the right time. If you have any questions or comments, please tune. That is the right time. And again,
Yeah,
while
please ask
we
questions.
my question for this thing is actually quite good because what you said is essentially okay, technical depth or whatever depth is not enough right now. You need to start broadening your expertise. So everybody who wants to start getting this data strategy thing, the data ecosystem, how can they do it without losing that expertise, that focus?
I think the biggest thing is like think about the so what. Everything you do, I had a partner in consulting way back when who was always like, so what, when I presented him a slide. And it was maddening because I'd always have to go back and reframe it and redo it. But it got me to a point where now it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, what's the implication? What's the action out of it? And I think if people think with that perspective, like just right, so what, put it on your wall and like think about it every once in a while when you build something or when you're doing something, you'd be like, is this actually worth my time? Am I actually delivering value from what I'm doing right now? That will help you kind of move to that next level or think about it in a better and unique way without spending a ton of time researching this and that and learning about this and that. Because it is, I think, again, it's working smart. Understand what you need to know to be better at your job or to be better in your career or get to the goals that you want to go. And then kind of apply that action and use AI as a support bucket to get there. But yeah, always kind of have that frame of reference of what matters and so what.
Okay, I love that advice. I'm stealing that. I'm using that tomorrow in my one-on-ones with my team. I love it. So what is such a great advice?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I hated my consulting partner for making me do all that extra work, but it's done well for me. And I'm actually um kind of self plug, but I am releasing a LinkedIn learning course in the summer, and it's focused
Oh,
on this kind of insights led thinking in the world of AI. Um, because it's not enough now to just be like um, reading out what data is on the dashboard or something like that, right? You have to kind of go beyond that, more from an analyst perspective, everybody. And so the so what kind of thing features quite prominently because I don't think, again, AI doesn't have the context to do that yet. You have to apply that layer on, and that's kind of how you differentiate yourself. That's how you prove your worth and your value to your team and your stakeholders.
nice. I didn't know about that LinkedIn Learning course. I'm a massive fan of some of these, so please do share the link. I'm taking that immediately after you release it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm heading out to film it in a couple weeks, so I'll let you know when it drops.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Uh, is there anything that I should have asked you through this conversation? Outro, we're going to the end, but essentially, is there anything I should have asked you but haven't?
I don't think so. I think you got through most of the stuff, both from like a professional individual perspective as well as like what the ecosystem means and such. And I mean, I think for me, like the biggest thing, my parting advice and words of wisdom to people is like uh, have like find your technical niche and your overall domain expertise in your niche and stuff and really kind of dive into that. Make sure that's a worthwhile niche moving forward. And leverage that and build your brand around it type thing. Like when I started the data ecosystem, I was like, okay, I think it's a cool idea. And I started putting stuff out and other people did as well. And I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna keep with it. Um, you're not and then I would say to build on that technical niche, always be aware of what's going on in the world. I think the past kind of 6-month break was me kind of taking a look back and like, oh, this is what else is happening. And that's kind of where I've started to think of the AI systems design because it is a build from the data ecosystem, but something that's not being done well in the world right now. And sometimes you just have to take your head outside your organization, kind of take your head out of the sand type thing and see what other people are doing, what they're building, and how that interacts with yours or builds on with what your niche or area is. And I think that's so important nowadays with where we're getting to, right? To excel in today's world, you need to figure out what that kind of value proposition is, and it needs to be different than what it was 5, 10 years ago.
I know that I said that was the last question, but still, doesn't it feel like a full-time job to keep up with all the trends?
Yeah. It definitely is, and the thing is, like, I don't know what the last model that was released for AI is, like, I'm not saying, like, make sure you know everything of what's happened, but make sure you kinda know what's happening within your skills and your area of expertise and your line of work, like, I'm lucky that I'm exposed to a lot of different companies going on because I'm a consultant, right? I see a lot of things different happening, but I also pay attention to my network on LinkedIn, which is big. Like I see what you're writing about your and then like other people are writing about and understanding, okay, this is how like data modeling is changing. This is how data architecture changes. This is governance is changing and like adapting that into my thinking. And now with AI, it becomes a lot easier to kind of create that vault of information. Um, and I think that's helpful for you down in the long run. I think one of the biggest things that I always pushed on my consultants in my career is one, organize your files and your content and everything in a manageable way because you will reference back to that. So many slides that I use now with clients are slides that I've used before in my own kind of line of work because the thinking is still very valid. You just need to tweak it somewhat, and that will be very, very true moving forward. And then the second thing is like once you've organized that, is apply that next level of thinking on top of it so that you can tweak it in a better and better way and for the times that it's updated and stuff like that. So it really, yes, it takes time, but if you do it more systematically and you create a system around it, you can be more automatic around it. And that doesn't just mean uploading everything to AI and use AI to do your thinking. It means like organizing how you've thought before and how you've done things before in a way that makes you better and you can reuse stuff in the long run.
Awesome. All right, Dylan, thanks so much. That is an amazing chat. Can you again share with everybody where they can follow you, where they can connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. So feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or connect. If you connect, just shoot a note because I have like a lot of open connection
How
requests. I
many
don't accept a
connections do
lot.
you have?
I think I only actually have 4,000 connections. I have 52,000 followers. But there's one point where like I had 2,000 open connections. And I just don't like to connect with people who like don't introduce themselves or I don't know. But if someone includes a note, I'll always engage and I'll always accept it because then I know they actually put some effort in. So yeah, LinkedIn's one. I share posts every day. And then obviously the data ecosystem, which Jordan provided before. I'm back into writing on it. So a weekly kind of deep dive into different elements and domains in the data ecosystem. And yeah, if there's topics and things you want to see, feel free to just shoot me a message or something like that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Again, it was an actual, a real pleasure to talk to you. I enjoyed that a lot. I hope everybody in the chat and watching this also enjoyed it. Yeah, I guess have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks so much. It was great to be
Thank
here.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.